What's going on, everybody? This is dkdynamite, and tonight we're going to be talking about early access for Black Ops 7 when it comes to operators, the campaign, and even the full launch of the game. Definitely stay tuned. Now, over the last few days, you may have noticed a series of changes with the reveal trailer thumbnail for BO7. Maybe you guys didn't see, but it does look like starting earlier this week, Call of Duty's been taking part in ABC testing for the thumbnail of that video. In case you're unfamiliar with how that works, I want to say a year and a half ago, YouTube introduced a permanent feature allowing you to test up to 3 thumbnails at once for a certain video, and after a good week or two of testing, they'll just stick to the one that was the most popular. Now, it's unclear why this testing wasn't done when the trailer initially dropped. Is this a response to some of the backlash regarding how futuristic BO7 looks? Are they worried that this could be an infinite warfare situation again, where some folks assume that the game is just way far in the future and isn't tactical enough like you would expect with Call of Duty? I'm not too sure, but the thing is, this game does take place in 2035, is meant to be pretty futuristic, as it is a sequel to BO2, which also happens to take place before Black Ops 3 and 4. But just earlier today, live during the Bombshell podcast, and by the way, thank you all for tuning in if you were there. In case you missed it, it'll be linked in the full Bombshell playlist down below in this video's description. During the podcast itself, Call of Duty dropped a blog post dedicated to all the Vault Edition operator changes that they're going to be making for the full release of the game. Now, when it comes to the Vault Edition operators, something that we did see during MW2, 3, and Black Ops 6 was the ability to bring your Vault Edition pre-order skins into the beta before the full game was even out. Sadly, it does look like you're not going to be getting early access to any of the Vault Edition operators or Mastercrafts during the BO7 beta, and unfortunately, we're going to have to wait till the full launch of the game to be able to use all of that content. Now, unless they're making changes to the Mastercrafts as they did with the operator skins, then I can't really figure out why they're not letting us use at least the Mastercrafts during the beta, since it was always a cool head start to be able to use decked out, leveled up weapons, which you needed to grind attachments for. But as you can see with our operator skins, we gotta look at all these operators walking through what I believe could be the multiplayer lobby menu, which we'll end up seeing during the beta and at launch. Regardless, still a really cool background. One of the biggest updates from the blog is that we're not just getting 1 TED skin with the Vault Edition, but 2. So because of the feedback they received, which I do believe a lot of it was warranted, they're not just giving us 1 TED skin with the purchase of 1 Vault Edition, but 2 TED skins. This means you'll get the original look, which has more of a human-like face, which never really seen in game before, apart from that postcard in green run back in BO2, and a pinch of an Alpha Omega. You can not only bring that version of Ted into the game, but the full melted version that we've all come to love ever since the original Transit. Now, we went over that change to Ted in a previous video earlier this week. We just didn't expect that they're going to be giving us 2 different Ted skins with the purchase of 1 Vault Edition, so that's a huge plus. Now, they're not going to be making any changes to Reaper. I don't think he really needed any to begin with, since he looks pretty faithful to the specialists we all remember from Black Ops 3 and 4. But looking at an operator like Karma, who canonically did die in BO2, maybe she'll be featured in flashbacks throughout the campaign, she got a pretty big makeover. So instead of the whole 3D X-ray theme that was going on with her original look, it's definitely scaled back quite a bit and is a lot more grounded. I gotta say, I like the original look for Karma a lot better, since I think it fit the whole Memories vibe that we're also getting with Reznov as a part of the challenge pack. But you know what? If fans wanted a more down-to-earth version of Karma, then there you go. Now, back when the Vault Edition was revealed, I had the biggest issue with Harper altogether. I just didn't think the skin looked great. It was a bit too blocky, kind of like Transformer-y, Overwatch-y. You guys probably get what I'm saying. They've now shrunk the armor that was on his body, and it looks more like what you'd expect from a Call of Duty operator, not something from a different game altogether. So I do think this is a great change to his character. I also wonder if they're going to take down any of the trailers they dropped for BO7, since quite a few of them are now pretty outdated with what they say about the Vault Edition, especially the dedicated Vault Edition trailer, which mentions we can use a lot of this content during the beta. That's now completely false. But a big topic that's been talked about for the last couple of months, especially recently with the announcement of a co-op campaign and a big endgame expansion you unlock after beating the campaign, is early access to this experience. Modern Warfare 2 and 3 for the very first time introduced early access to the single player campaigns, and because MW3 got review bombed and because of the Microsoft takeover, I think a lot of changes were made to how they handle Call of Duty launches, and I feel like early access campaigns probably aren't going to be returning. Now, we'll get back to that in just a bit, because there's a new report that I think will definitely spark your interest and could actually indicate early access to the campaign. But if you ask me, I think if there's any campaign that probably needs it, it's going to be this one. I mean, there's zombies in the endgame mode, and I know for a fact once folks get sucked into the round-based zombies mode, they'll probably have a hard time jumping over to beat a 6 to 10 hour campaign that has 11 missions before they could even access the DMZ-like mode, which is going to be called Endgame. Now, with the confirmation that you're going to have global progression in campaign as well for the first time, I don't think anybody out there would mind having access to the campaign a couple days before the other modes, because they'd be leveling up their operators and weapons anyway while playing the linear missions and then the endgame experience. Now, on the flip side, even though multiplayer and zombies are going to keep people busy for quite a while, there's still going to be downtime, as we see with every Call of Duty entry, and I think during any downtime we see in between seasons, that'll probably be when folks are going to be like, hey, I already did all my mastery camos or a bunch of challenges in these other modes, let me get some friends together, or hopefully matchmake, and go play co-op campaign. And then after that, once they unlock endgame, and they can also work towards a campaign mastery camo, they'll realize the amount of content that is also available from the endgame. And just to remind you, that mode, endgame, will be getting updates over the course of BO7's life cycle. So I think even without early access, there'll be reasons to keep returning to the campaign for the very first time over the next several months after Black Ops 7 is out. But we haven't seen a co-op campaign since Black Ops 3. Before that, World at War. So it's been a while. It's great to see that system come back at least one more time. So I do think the co-op element of it will probably also encourage players to at least still visit the campaign, even if it's a couple months after the launch of the game. Now, I wasn't originally going to make a dedicated video on this report, but it kind of just meshed well with some other topics I wanted to address anyway, such as early access to campaign, the possibility of early access to zombies. This report right here, coming in from the Ghost of Hope, does say, and I quote, very, very big grain of salt, Black Ops 7 may move up its release date. Another leaker known as Crash also tweeted the same thing. It's unknown where this info is coming from. It's probably not a data mine, but instead the word of mouth, one of their sources, somebody that contacted them. Who knows where this is derived from? I think if it is true and it leaks to the press, I'm sure Insider Gaming will end up having an article on this within the coming weeks. But an earlier release date for Black Ops 7 could indicate one or two things. It could be the Black Ops 4 scenario where the game actually isn't ready, but the studio cares about competition with other major titles and wants to get the game out as fast as possible. Not saying they're going to drop it before October 10th when Battlefield 6 does, but they might want to just make sure they get their game out sooner rather than later, which I don't think is really going to happen anyway. The games will have their own audiences and different player bases. But this can also indicate that the game is ready to go and they're ahead of schedule, so there's no real reason to wait until November 14th to actually drop the game. If that's the case, then sure, I'm open to it, but maybe they've heard whispers of an earlier launch for BO7 because it could just be the campaign or another mode that we'll have early access to way after the beta ends. Maybe that's what they heard, or if they're talking about the full launch of the game, then this could be huge if the game comes out closer to Halloween or at least 1 week before November 14th if the game is ready to ship. I would just hate for the game to release early while it's riddled with issues, because there's just no need for that. This is a game that absolutely cannot have a scuffed launch, especially considering some of the rough reception that BO7's already gotten from just the marketing alone. Now, Season 6 begins the day after the beta concludes for BO6, so I feel like they're at least going to want to give players a couple of weeks to play that content, to purchase content added to the store. I don't think they'll try to ruin all of that with the full launch of BO7 so quickly, but who knows, maybe 3 weeks after Season 6 begins for Black Ops 6, they just drop BO7 a week or two earlier before it was supposed to. But regardless, the New Zealand trick is going to work as it always does for the full launch of a brand new game. This doesn't work for seasonal updates because those updates always drop at the exact same time for all regions. But when it comes to a full launch of a fresh game, especially Call of Duty, that's where folks take a trip to New Zealand, they change their region on their Activision profile, or they change the region on Xbox Game Pass to give them early access to those data packs to actually play the new Call of Duty about, 12 or so hours before North America actually gets it. And the last thing I'll end with is the possibility of early access to zombies. I've seen quite a few great comments about this, like, what about a limited 20-round or so beta on a piece of Transit, or just farm survival? There have been quite a few comments like that I wanted to bring up real quick, because while it is a good idea, I think the type of zombies beta I would like to see is something very limited, to where it's not the entire new round-based map, which I think would spoil the actual full launch of the game, and would probably burn people out before the Easter eggs even go live. I think having a small section would be alright, just as a very small demo of the zombies mode. Something I said back during Cold War is that Onslaught was a perfect mode to introduce during a beta, because you're able to play zombies on that engine with those weapons, just not on the actual new round-based maps, but just on pieces of multiplayer maps. I think if zombies were to get any type of demo this year, they'll probably announce that during the big zombie reveal week, which is hopefully next week, or during the COD Next broadcast. But that is about it. This has been dkdynamite. Leave our thoughts down below in the comment section. What are your thoughts on early access for BO7 when it comes to the Vault Edition operators, even the Mastercrafts, the campaign, and even the full launch of the game? Really hope you've enjoyed, and peace out, everybody.